Mother relay, we're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. The latest from Michaela Mayer, who says, "Some might say my win over Sandy Ryan was a hometown decision. It wasn't, and I will do it even better next time." All signs point to a Mayer versus Ryan rematch. It was a year of contrasting fortunes. A near miss in January against Natasha Jonas in Liverpool. It ended with a deserved victory over Sandy Ryan in New York. 2 attempts at a world title, welterweight glory, that ended very differently. But that victory over Ryan that earned Mayer the WBO welterweight bauble has given the American leverage and a thirst for even more. Michaela addressed Natasha Jonas's upcoming fight with newly crowned champion Lauren Price. She said, "I think everyone is assuming that Lauren is a shoo-in to win, but I don't think that. Unless Lauren really cracks her, and I mean she is strong, but she fought a nobody in December. But Lauren is physically very strong, so there is always a chance that she can catch Natasha, especially with them being both southpaws. They might line up differently from what they think, and they both might get hit a lot, but I think it will be a really close fight. I think Tasha has a higher punch count, so if it is close, that could push it her way. She is busier than Lauren, but we'll see. I think it is a really good fight and really competitive, but I'm not like everyone else who is saying that Lauren Price will win. Will kill Natasha Jonas." I'm surprised that Michaela Mayer didn't factor in Lauren's natural size and speed, not just her strength, into this evaluation. Lauren Price is lightning fast. She's got the kind of speed and reflexes that I think are hard to duplicate, hard to prepare for. And I think Lauren's speed, sharpness, that's what's going to tell the story. That is what's going to separate them. And it's surprising that Michaela Mayer didn't account for that. Michaela, who said, "I have my belt, Jonas and Price can go and unify for me, and then they will need me. I can't be frozen out of this at all. They will need my belt." So it's going to be really exciting in 2025. It seems so long ago now, a winter's night in a bitterly cold Liverpool back in January of 2024. A split decision reversal against Jonas that seemed so unfair to many. The Mayer team incensed by what transpired, but despite the protests and the cries of robbery, Mayer didn't have anywhere near the same dark feelings that she had when Alicia Baumgartner took away so much back in 2022. The deep sense of grief that followed that painful night wasn't what she experienced after her fight with Jonas. Perhaps it's because Alicia and Michaela, they hate each other. I feel like the Jonas fight was so long ago now. Even after that night, you knew I wasn't as devastated as I was when I lost my belts at super featherweight. I felt I beat Jonas, and I felt that people saw that as well. Everyone saw that I would be an asset to this division, and I knew that I would get another chance, and I did. And I was able to capitalize on it this time. Perseverance was my first tattoo, and I keep showing that. Perseverance through adversity. I feel as though all of these boxers are looking at me and seeing that I lost my titles 2 years ago. Then I got that bad decision against Jonas, and then I came back, and I beat Sandy, who was supposed to be the baddest girl in the division. Some might say my win over Sandy was a hometown decision. It wasn't, and I will do it even better the next time. They see it as pretty inspiring, especially in a sport that always counts you out after a loss. It's very unforgiving, but I feel as though I have rewritten that narrative now. So, hopefully I can inspire people to keep going and not let the boxing world retire them. It is possible to navigate your way back after a loss. I hope that it becomes an inspiring story. It is. The story of Michaela Mayer is already exactly that. Drifting along in her formative years, there was no direction, a road to nowhere before boxing found her, and her life was changed forever. It's been far from easy for Mayer. That devastating setback against Baumgartner, a pain that still lingers. Multiple attempts have been made, including in recent times, to get the two bitter rivals running it back. Again, in many ways, it is unfinished business. Money left on the table, as they say, and big money at that. You sense at some point all parties will realize that it makes business sense to reignite one of the greatest ever rivalries in women's boxing history. In truth, it's just common sense, though now they are separated by weight. Michaela's up there at welter, whereas Alicia is still down there at super feather.
There's a legitimate argument that the Baumgartner fight deserves a rematch more than the Ryan fight.
Though with or without Baumgartner, Mayer is back in control of her career. Fight Post is of the understanding that the rematch with Ryan is edging ever closer. Not so long ago, her options seemed extremely limited. Now, they are seemingly endless. As she says herself, very much a story of perseverance. And I like the message that all of this sends to the boxing community at large, that a boxer's career doesn't have to be over after a loss or even 2 losses.
Look at Amanda Serrano. She's got 3 losses, but she's one of, if not the highest earning woman boxer.
Previous era of boxing, the Mayweather era, special emphasis was placed on the unbeaten record, due to Floyd Mayweather's desire to surpass Rocky Marciano, who retired undefeated.
A selling point.
And an effective one for a time, though it skewed the boxing community's perception of what a boxer's worth after they lose, when some of the greatest boxers to ever lace them up have suffered losses more than once. It's gonna happen when you're fighting the best.
And isn't that what people really want? Irrespective of unbeaten and unblemished records, for the best fighters to fight the best fighters?
Michaela Mayer is a great example that if you fall, you can pick yourself up, dust yourself off, get back on the saddle, and get back on track. I think that's the message that boxing needs right now.
Nah, I don't have no news on my next opponent yet. We were looking at some guys, but now Your Excellency has called a meeting for me that's why I'm here, like I said, to meet with him, and we'll see.
Devin Haney is in London right now, and he's made it very clear why he's there. He's been summoned by His Excellency to talk about his next fight, and coincidentally, Ryan Garcia is in London as well.
Gee, I wonder why.
You can only imagine what both Devin and Ryan would have to talk about with His Excellency, Mr. Turki El Sheikh. That ever so elusive rematch between them, and having difficulty coming to terms and reaching a deal, Turkey is the only one who can bring these two guys together and prepare a big enough financial package that they might both play ball.
Make them an offer they can't refuse.
Though even without Turki El Sheikh, this rematch between Ryan and Devin, it's bigger than the first fight was. It's way bigger now than it was before, and you would think on that premise alone, they'd be able to reach a deal. So, why haven't they?
What's the holdup?
I want to be fighting on an even playing field with everybody. You know, I want to be a spokesperson for clean boxing, because, you know, I was one that actually experienced it. I experienced, being cheated and what it's like to fight somebody that's, that's on PEDs. So, I want to clean up the sport of boxing, clean up sports in general. So, that's my main focus right now.
The anti-doping testing, the VADA testing, that is at least in part the holdup. I remember a few weeks ago, Bill Haney gave Ryan Garcia an ultimatum to sign up to VADA now. Ryan Garcia didn't want to. He didn't want to then, he doesn't want to now.
Saying, it's getting really strange why it's always VADA. Can we get some other organizations to test? Cause you've got Bill pushing only VADA, never says any other organizations, and it's strange he's pushing a certain organization. Don't you just want any kind of testing? All this sounds like the people pushing to use VADA are getting some kind of cut of the money to have people use VADA. Seems unethical. This is just my opinion.
Just an excuse.
So from the moment that Ryan Garcia's anti-doping fiasco started, he's been trying to implicate VADA in connection to Victor Conti, and Victor Conti in connection to the Haneys.
That they're in cahoots?
What he's implying, now you can go ahead and contract USADA instead of VADA, but the reason that most fighters don't is because USADA is more expensive. A fact that came to light during the Maypac era, ahead of the Maypac fight, that Floyd was insistent they use USADA instead of the more affordable VADA for reasons all his own. And while anti-doping testing was popularized as a result, USADA in the sport of boxing was not. The more preeminent anti-doping agency used for boxing matches was, and still is, VADA.
There are others.
There's USADA that I just mentioned, but there is also Drug-Free Sport, the anti-doping testing agency that conducted the tests for Alicia Baumgartner and Christina Lenardatu's rematch.
You can hire them.
But what is Ryan's aversion to VADA? To just using VADA? What, because of Victor Conti? Because of the Haneys? Are we to now delegitimize
all the fighters that have tested positive under VADA testing on the premise of Ryan Garcia, because of how innocent he's supposed to be, how innocent he is. Remember that Ryan Garcia was not just tested by VADA. There was also a separate test from the New York State Athletic Commission. And that test came back positive too. That test that was not handled by the voluntary anti-doping agency. So while you're trying to make them out to be the bad guys, you still have to account for that. Why did the New York State Athletic Commission's anti-doping test come back positive too if you're supposed to be innocent and VADA presumably set you up? Why? It's very easy to run with Ryan Garcia's narrative when you don't factor that into the equation. VADA weren't the only ones that tested him. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of an agreement they reach, because they're leaving too much money on the table not running it back, not fighting each other again. That is by and large one of the biggest fights you can make involving American fighters on American soil. Garcia versus Haney 2 might even do $1 million. I wouldn't rule it out. $1 million? The stage is set. The backstory is there. And that's not even counting the promotion in the build-up as they build up to the second fight. No, I wouldn't rule it out. It's big. A tinge of worry from Ryan Garcia. That's how that reads. That you might get tested by VADA again. And you don't want that. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I think Ryan is doping. I absolutely think that Ryan is doping and Ryan is cheating, and maybe Devin Haney is too. But he's not the one bitching about VADA testing. No, that's you. He's not the one that had aspirin in his system. That's you! So maybe he's doing a better job of hiding it? It's one way to look at things, but another is, Ryan is afraid he'll get caught red-handed again. That he will not go into the second fight with the same advantages he had in the first one. I don't imagine the Haney's demands will have changed, even now that Turkey is involved. They're gonna want penalties. They're gonna want to agree on a weight, a contracted weight, and they're gonna want penalties attached if Ryan doesn't make it, like he did in the first fight. You think Ryan is gonna go for that? Well, I don't think he wants to, but depending on how much money Turkey is willing to pay him, he might. Money is the great motivator after all, and Turkey's got a lot of it, enough that he may be able to get Ryan to acquiesce to the Haney's demands, which aren't outlandish anyway. Why should VADA testing be a problem? What do you got to hide? Why should attaching penalties for blowing the weight be a problem? Do you plan on blowing it again? Can you not beat this guy on an even playing field? Because that's how it's starting to look. So many people want to pretend that there's anything great about Ryan's quote-unquote victory over Devin. You only achieve that by seemingly using banned substances and blowing the weight. That where he had to drain himself down to 140, you didn't bother. And that absolutely matters. Those last 2 or 3 pounds that you didn't bother to lose, that's what takes the most out of a fighter. And if you didn't subject yourself to that, that matters. So do you think you can beat this guy or not? We'll find out shortly. Finally, in men's heavyweight news, Fabio Wardley is open to a heavyweight clash with 43-year-old newly crowned WBA regular champion Kubrat Pulev. Fabio Wardley is currently open to a showdown with the new WBA regular heavyweight champion Kubrat Pulev. Wardley is currently plotting his next move following his explosive one-round victory over Frazier Clark back in October. The 30-year-old from Ipswich is currently rated number 1 with the WBA and knows that his next fight will be crucial when it comes to positioning for a world title shot before this year is out. And Pulev could represent the perfect option following the Bulgarian's unanimous decision win over then-champion Manuel Char on December 7th. The 43-year-old, who is now 32-2 with 14 knockouts, claimed the WBA regular title by virtue of the victory in Sophia Hall and is no stranger to British opponents. I think they messed up on Kubrat's record. I think he's got more than 2 losses. He's got the loss to Klitschko, the loss to Anthony, and the more recent loss in recent years to Derek Chisora. Who's no stranger to British opponents, having already faced Anthony Joshua, Derek Chisora, Hughie Fury, Matt Skelton, and Michael Sprott. Wardley told Boxing News, "I saw that he won the regular belt. That is a fight I definitely consider because it would help to put me in a prime position. It helps being number 1 with them already. I don't know how keen he is to fight me, but it's definitely something me and the team will look at." There was a rumor some weeks ago that Jarrell Big Gravy Miller
might be fighting Kubrat.
The caveat.
Jarrell Miller was recently in talks to face Derek Chisora, and some kind of situation with his old promoter Dmitry Salita prevented him from having that fight. So who's to say that that same situation won't prevent him from having this one? Enter Fabio Wardley, who is now promoted by Queensberry Promotions and will be fighting under the Queensberry Promotions banner. Surely, if Kubrat can't get something going with Jarrell, he can always fight Fabio. And for a fighter Kubrat's age, 43 years old, the only real value in holding that WBA regular title is parlaying it into a payday.
If you can't get one with Jarrell, go get one with Fabio.
Sort of a win-win for Fabio, because a 43-year-old Kubrat Pulev isn't necessarily the riskiest fight for Fabio, but still a good enough fight that he can learn something from it, that Kubrat would be the most experienced fighter that he will have fought so far, arguably the most decorated.
It's somewhere in between a developmental fight and an acid test. It's somewhere in between there.
You think Fabio Wardley still needs developmental fights?
To a degree. The win over David Adelaide and the more recent wins over Frazier Clark are great wins over British-level guys. They're not world-level.
Now, Kubrat Pulev, at least at one point in his career, was a world-level guy. Even if he's not necessarily those things now, he still brings all that experience to the table, that he's not exactly a walk in the park.
Not on paper.
It's a good fight with the added incentive of the WBA regular title. And I know, that's not the full title, that's just a baby belt, that's just a secondary title. But if Fabio can have that fight and win that belt, that puts him in position to become WBA champion. Full champion should Usyk at any point drop all his belts. And at his age, he might.
There's a lot of talk about Usyk dropping back down to cruiser, fighting Jai Opataya, all that stuff. You figure that if he does that and drops all his belts, in a scenario like this, Fabio could get elevated to full champion.
All he's got to do is beat Pulev. 43-year-old Kubrat Pulev.
He's got a good jab.
He's a well-schooled boxer, Pulev. He always has been. Nothing really jumps out at you about him, but he's good at a lot of little things.
He's a former Olympian.
And I'm not surprised that Fabio is receptive to a fight with him, because I already talked about this in a previous video. Now that Fabio's ranked at number 1, this is a distinct possibility.
Not a bad fight.